Well, hello again. This is According to Callus. This is episode 213, and I'm on the road, so there'll be no intro music today. But I might remind you that I did offer up my personal thoughts on the Constable debate as well as the HD 61 debate. Both of these are runoffs, guys, in episodes 211 and 213 respectively. So while we're on the topic of debates, there's been a debate going on for some time at the school district here in McKinney, aka Collin County, Texas. And for those of you that are not in Collin County and think this just doesn't affect you, it's not your problem, think again. Now, I'll be completely honest, I am a little frustrated with the marketing from both sides of the issue here. And unsurprisingly, as is the nature, our mayor has decided to weigh in not once, not twice, but now 3 times. And this time he promotes the line put forth by the chief administrator, aka the superintendent of the McKinney Independent School District, whereupon he denies that they've done anything wrong, and even if they have, it's clearly the parents' fault because they have not properly challenged the books in the proper format that they designed to make it as absolutely easy as possible for parents to bring their concerns to be dealt with. But I digress. The fact of the matter is there are a number of those books that have been challenged, some successfully, some not successfully. And there are repeated roadblocks and changes to the format of challenging them that have been put up. Keep in mind that this process is supposed to be there to allow parents to protect their children from groomers. But that's not what's going on. No, we have a false attack, we have straw man arguments, and quite frankly, we have students that have legitimate concerns, but they're misinformed in how those facts are presented to them so that they're not actually aware of what the issue is at play here. Now, to be sure, of the 282 books that may have been challenged out of a list of 700 and whatever from a state rep, I have no doubt that we can quibble and argue about a good number of those books. But when you're dealing with obscenity, which some of these books are, I would think that you would want to defer to the parents, not to pedophiles. I would think that you would be more concerned about protecting the parents and their respective children. Indeed, perhaps getting feedback from some of those teachers that they feel that we are attacking so viciously, or the librarians that they feel we are blaming for this problem, none of which is true. Most of our teachers, if not the vast majority of our teachers, are good people, and they want what's best for the students, all of their students. The same with the librarians. But they throw this up as a defensive measure and make it about the teachers and the librarians, when in fact they have very little control over what is put forth in the curriculum or in the books provided for young children. Indeed, if those same books were to be, given to you at work, or to share some of those things at work, some of us would end up with naughty notes, or perhaps even fired, because most of this content is not safe for work. But apparently it is appropriate in elementary schools. Apparently, not only do we have story time where we go over non-appropriate materials, we encourage our students to hide this from their parents. Now, of course, I know some of you are going to say, but not in McKinney. This couldn't possibly be happening in Collin County. Oh, but my dear friends, how would you know if they hide it so well? We know that it's going on in neighboring school districts. We know that other neighboring school districts are being a little more aggressive in how they deal with this. And being more attuned to their parents' concerns. And I said this once, I've said it 100 times. Nobody wants to ban a bunch of books. Nobody wants a blacklist. But simple restrictions or limiting access to obscene material seems to be a very simple and easy way to do this. I mean, these are the same folks that cheer every time they limit other rights and other protected actions, but they want to prevent us from enforcing laws that are on the books. Indeed, allegedly, the chief of police isn't interested in enforcing this law. Allegedly, the chief law enforcement officer, also known as the DA, who, by the way, is up for re-election, mind you, is not interested in actually doing anything about this. I asked some of these parents if they've taken it to the sheriff. I'd be interested to see what the situation is. Indeed, there are several of our state reps that are at least looking into this or feigning interest or displeasure in the issue. But we know that at some point this becomes political posturing and becomes more of an interest in how can I fundraise than actually solving a problem. But then we've seen this for decades now, and we've learned that the actual politicians have zero interest in actually solving problems. They only want to get reelected. And that leads us back to our mayor, the duplicitous. Yes, I am mispronouncing that on purpose because I don't even think he's worthy of that. The sorry thing is that the man presents himself as a reasonable, congenial guy and is friendly to everybody until you cross him or until you disagree with him, and then he turns into a vicious monster. My opinion, of course, and this is my show because it is called According to Callus, and I get to say that. But it's disappointing in more than one way. It's disappointing that nobody will call him out on it. It's disappointing that we can't even get our other elected officials to just rein him in just a tad. It's equally disappointing that the entire school board trustee system, with the exception of Chad Green, is silent and sits on their hands and doesn't want to even address this issue. They think it'll just go away. Or perhaps, maybe it's doing exactly what they want it to do. Distract us from other issues. Distract us from things that potentially are worse. I don't know. But one wonders why they continue to just play along and not address these issues. I mean, it's my understanding that they have a plausible solution. No, would it make everybody, happy? Would everybody be thrilled with the option? No. But it's something they could talk about. It's something that they could be at least upfront and honest about. But no, they don't even want to do that. Instead, they bring in the opposite side of the aisle to counter-protest. And protest meaning counter-protest means counterproductive, meaning we don't actually get an issue. And I've put this forward once. I'm going to put it forth again. Why don't you just create a parents' review board? I mean, you get to wash your hands of it. I mean, you're going to get to appoint the majority of the people on this parents' review board, so you probably even get the outcome that you want, which is to protect pedophiles and groomers. But, I mean, there are some, let's call it unsavory or books that make people uncomfortable. Hey, that's kind of in the eye of the beholder, but there is an objective standard for obscenity, and I'm going to guess that the majority of adults would agree with what makes obscene. I mean, there was a objective standard when they came up with that terminology. Certainly we could agree that, maybe there's 50 of those 282 books that cross over into obscene. And maybe of the, 232 books that are left, there's half of them that are, not appropriate for 6-year-olds, but maybe we could make an argument that'd be appropriate for middle schoolers. Or we could put a little bit of a rating system in place. I mean, these are all very easy, simple solutions and options. But it's, again, the administration that thinks they know best. It's our elected leaders that have determined that they know what's best for you and your children, and they don't care what you think or what your concerns are. And the only way to remedy that is to remove these people. Now, there's more than one way to remove them, and perhaps we need to consider what our options are going forward. Perhaps we need to consider the fact that the reason why they get this and get away with this is because we don't do our jobs. Now, let me back up a second. I said there was more than one reason. The other reason is, quite frankly, the majority of our churches are giving these people a free pass, whether it's our mayor or our city council or the school district's board. Where are their pastors at? I mean, a good number of these people claim to be good Christian people. I mean, I'd be curious as to whether or not their pastor's okay with some of the things that they espouse or believe or protect. Particularly our mayor, because apparently he's friendly with so many pastors in town, and they just love him to come and, tell his story. Why are we giving cover to this guy? Why does our pastor feel the need to play ball with somebody that obviously has some questionable thoughts? But yet we do. Not to mention the fact that at least 3 members of the current school board are members in good standing at McKinney First, a.k.a. First Baptist McKinney, a.k.a. the former largest, most influential church in the city, and they get a free pass. Nobody questions the fact that one of those city council members, school board members, is actually a paid person on the staff of said Baptist church. And yet, no condemnation, no little talk, no little conversation. This is really kind of some icky stuff that you're putting in front of our kids. Perhaps maybe you should consider whether or not you're a good fit at First Baptist. I mean, I know in today's day and age that the Baptist church kind of lost their soul and their spine. Not all of them, but I mean, come on. Look at what goes on in the hierarchy of most of our churches. They're selling us out. They refuse to hold their own people accountable. We don't look to hold pagans accountable to Christian values if they're pagans. But if you're going to claim to be a good Christian and you're going to run as a good Christian, you probably ought to behave and espouse good Christian values. And when you don't, you should be held accountable. Somebody should call you out for it. Somebody should question that. Now, I mean, if you're going to be a pagan and be honest about being a pagan, then we accept that we're going to get pagan values. And we don't have to like it, but there's nothing to hold you accountable for. You're being true to your paganness. Now, I know some of the multiculturalists and some of the folks that are postmodern would say you're just being you. Speak your own truth, and that's fine. But you see, if you're claiming to be a Christian, Christianity rejects both of those. Christianity doesn't accept them as an appropriate worldview, so you can't do both. They're mutually exclusive, yet we continue to tolerate this time and time again, whether it's my pastor or your pastor giving the mayor a free pass for his bad behavior, refusing to call him out for when he clearly steps over the line. They have no problem calling we, the people in the pews, out when we do something that's icky. But the same can be said, and even more so, of the school board, because a good number of them are members in good standing of a good local church, or so we're told, and they're not being held accountable. There's nobody questioning it. There's nobody upset in the least. And how does that happen? How does that work? Good question. Inquiring minds would like to know. Perhaps somebody ought to call up the pastor of First Baptist and ask him a few questions. Perhaps somebody ought to call up some of these local pastors that continue to give them a free pass and not call them out for, protecting pornography. Obfuscating to protect obscenity. I don't know. They're just not doing us any favors. They're just working against us, and yet we do nothing. We accept that that's what we're stuck with. But we, the people, do have the power. We do have the authority. We have the ultimate say of what's right and wrong. Sadly, And I say sadly, but sadly, I think a good number of our voting public has been unmoored from right from wrong, unmoored from a stable condition of understanding the moral certainty of a good number of things, unmoored from the possibility that there is a legitimate, objective right and wrong. In fact, they are so afraid of upsetting the media culture that we surround ourselves in. They're so afraid of upsetting a confused generation that they refuse to stand for anything. It reminds me, if you're not going to stand for anything, you'll stand for nothing. And when you stand for nothing, you are worthless, in my opinion. What good are you? The salt that's lost its savor comes to mind here. One wonders, how long are we going to continue to let other people who clearly are not conservative, clearly are not Republicans, and clearly are not Christians to redefine what it means to be all of the above? I mean, at least if a pagan's being honest, he knows what a Christian is, and he's not one, and he's not going to seek to redefine what Christianity is. Clearly, if somebody's a progressive, socialist, Democrat, or whatever other flavor of the month you want to call yourself, you might try and redefine what a conservative or what a Republican is, but everybody should rightfully just toss your commentary out. You have nothing to add. It's not so much that you're ignorant, because many times you're not, but it's that you're unreliable. You're irrelevant. You do not get to determine, as a progressive socialist, what it is to be the other. You don't get to continually redefine well-understood terms without getting any pushback. Now, I know you try. I know in some cases you've even been successful. You have convinced people that a dude is a girl. You've convinced some people that they need to change the form of their language because it's not socially acceptable to use a masculine term to define both men and women. And yet, nobody buys this. Nobody of any consequence, of any weight, really thinks this is a good thing. You say, we've been hearing from you all for 2 years about how we're supposed to trust the science. But your same science can't tell us whether it's a boy or a girl, whether it's right or wrong. It is just a sad commentary of the world we're in today that we are so confused that we have to trust somebody to explain something that was readily evident for millennia. And you can't even do that right. I'm sorry. But if you're the emperor, you have no clothes. I'm sorry, but I just can't continue to play along with this. So you can give yourself a nice title. You can win an election or two. You can convince everybody else around you that you're just a nice guy and you're looking out for the greater good and you love us all and, oh, I'm special. But no, that's not the way it works. If you have a different, distorted view of reality, you're really not qualified to be leading anybody. If you don't quite comprehend the idea that up is not down and left is not right and hot is not cold, you need to get your head checked. And while we're on the topic, as I travel about and I observe other things, I'm going to be looking for new ways to relate what we're going through and new observations to add into this. I had a whole lot more to say, but I want to keep it short tonight. It's kind of late. I got things to do. But when I'm back tomorrow, I've got a story I would like to share. I think it'd be quite interesting. And I would like you all to look forward to that. So in the meantime, while you're waiting with bated breath for the next episode, which would be 214, please take a moment out, go back, listen to 211 and 212, my comments on the previous debates. I'm trying to be even-handed, fair-minded, and give a good hearing to all the candidates involved. But I just have some questions. I have some concerns, and I'm curious as to whether or not you're on the same page. So if you found this helpful, if you found this interesting, or even the slightest bit entertaining, like and share this podcast. Make a comment. Tell your friends. Do something. Come on, man. You got to help me out here. I'm 213 episodes in. I got a little over 5K approved downloads. I have no idea how many people are actually listening that don't download it because they don't give me those numbers. But we've got to get the word out. We've got to keep working to make a difference. And I still live under the idea that one man can make a difference. We try and do the right thing no matter the consequences. And with that, this was, according to Callus, this was episode 213, and we're just going to call it McKinney Monday. And I will see you on the other side.